The Victorian State Coroner is considering investigating a possible spike in deaths in Morwell during the Hazelwood Mine fire. A community action group, Voices of the Valley, has been collecting information since the thick smoke blanketed the town earlier this year. A leading statistician who analysed official figures from the Registry of Birth, Deaths and Marriages says there's a high probability 11 deaths can be attributed to air pollution caused by the fire.
I was able to look at whether there was an unusual number of deaths during February and March in 2014, and my analysis showed there's an 89% probability that there was an increased risk of death during that time, and it was about a 15% increase in death, which translates to around 11 extra deaths for the 4 postcodes.
The board of the Hazelwood Mine inquiry has now forwarded research to the coroner and the Department of Health. And there'll be more on that story on 7:30 Victoria right after this bulletin.
Tonight on 7:30 Victoria, was the Morwell Mine fire fatal? A widow pleads for more investigation of the Hazelwood blaze.
Please, Mr Medical Examiner, please do the tests and find out. Take the samples and find out. Let's get some answers and some help for all of us.
Welcome to 7:30 Victoria, I'm Josie Taylor. Tonight we can reveal crucial information on the Hazelwood Mine fire, which an independent inquiry into the fire never heard. Data obtained by 7:30 has indicated a rise in deaths around Morwell during and after the fire at the open cut mine, which is located right next to the town. One of Australia's leading experts in air pollution has crunched the numbers and says the spike in deaths could be as high as 11. Sarah Farnsworth has this exclusive report.
Last Saturday, KIERY-ANNE CLISSOLD's husband, Harry McCormack, died from a brain aneurysm. He was 46.
He's never suffered a headache in his life. He's as fit as a mallee bull.
She says that was until the thick blanket of smoke from the Hazelwood Mine fire settled across Morwell.
You could not escape it. And it got that bad and we got so ill, we had to flee. And we fled 3 times. The only time in our whole near 30 years together that he'd ever suffered from any type of headache at all, not to the point of throwing up, was during that horrible, horrible toxic conditions.
She believes the pollution from the fire caused her husband's death.
My doctor even said to me that aneurysms do happen, but they're not common.
Concerns about the health impact of the Hazelwood fire have lingered much longer than the choking smoke which covered Morwell for 45 days.
These people, they are criminals.
Now a group known as Voices of the Valley, which formed during the fire, says not only have people fallen sick from pollution, it also claims people died as a result.
Initially we noticed quite a few people were dying, and we started taking note of what the death notices were saying. And the death notices were, instead of saying the things like tragically and after a long illness, we were finding that quite a few of them were starting to say suddenly, so we became concerned. They were sort of from 50 upwards. You know, there were some quite old, but there were also some that were quite, 50, 55. Seems too early to have died suddenly.
We were told that people weren't going to die, and we kind of believed that, sort of. And then we went to, then we started to look at, what was actually happening.
Voices of the Valley drew up its own research to present to the Hazelwood Mine fire inquiry.
That was 2009, your peak.
Yeah,
now we know 11 people died in that fire, yet we've peaked up here.
But efforts to gain access to data from the Registry of Birth, Deaths and Marriages took 4 months and came too late.
Birth, Deaths and Marriages gave us the information the day after the inquiry ended.
But the group's own research was enough to elicit a response from the inquiry. In an email to Voices of the Valley, the inquiry's principal legal advisor stated, The board notes that the matters raised in your letter are of concern and for that reason will pass the information on to the Department of Health and Victorian coroner. The ABC approached ADRIAN BARNETT, a leading statistician and epidemiologist who specialises in environmental health, to analyse the figures from birth, deaths and marriages. He looked at the monthly number of deaths from 4 postcode areas in and around Morwell from 2009 to 2014.
Given that data, I was able to look at whether there was an unusual number of deaths during February and March in 2014. And my analysis showed there's an 89% probability that there was an increased risk of death during that time. And it was about a 15% increase in death, which translates to around 11 extra deaths for the 4 postcodes.
His analysis also took into account the high temperatures around the same time.
No, there's very strong evidence that heat also kills people. So yes, I was able to adjust the monthly temperature, and the probability of an increased risk of death came down to about 81% and about an 11% increase in risk. So a small reduction. We should be open about this data and how it was analysed and where it came from and what the caveats are.
As promised, the Fire Inquiry Board did pass on the information it received from Voices of the Valley to the Health Department, which says it's now analysing the figures. However, in a statement, the Health Department says its own investigation into figures from birth, deaths and marriages shows no increase in deaths in Morwell during the period of the Hazelwood open-cut mine fire, compared to the same period in previous years. But the department's official figures also never reached the Hazelwood Mine fire inquiry, which means they haven't been scrutinised either.
I mean, it's about convincing people that something really happened here.
Following 5 months of investigation, the Hazelwood Mine fire inquiry did find that the smoke and ash clouds had what it called distressing health impacts, and acknowledged that the advice to relocate, given by the Chief Health Officer Rosemary Lester, came too late.
As it turned out, that the best time to have in effect made sure that people were not exposed to those ash and fumes was in the first couple of weeks.
Of particular concern to residents is what any exposure to small particles, known as PM2.5, will have in years to come, on a town with one of the poorest health records in the state. The fire inquiry was told people with pre-existing heart and lung conditions are at risk from exacerbated problems, and hospital admissions and death could increase.
We don't know how many years it's taken off our life. We do know that those that were a little bit sick, anything that they were sick with was accelerated. Our sick die early and our young are getting sick that they shouldn't. There are things that are just totally not right.
The Deputy Premier, Peter Ryan, was in Morwell this morning.
Can you rule out that people haven't died because of air pollution in this area?
Well, I can.
He went on to say,
there have not been any deaths and no indication of such. But by the same token, we are concerned, of course, to undertake the health studies which the inquiry has recommended, and we will do that.
That's not enough for KIERY-ANNE CLISSOLD. She is now demanding the coroner investigate what caused her husband's death.
We've got to find out why he was snatched like that, because it does not make sense.
Sarah Farnsworth reporting there, who was assisted in preparing that story by Madeline Morris from 7:30 National and Rihanna Whitson, the ABC's Morwell reporter. And in a statement to 7:30 Victoria, the State Coroner Ian Gray says he'll consider the request for a coronial investigation after receiving information from the Voices of the Valley. Daniel Andrews, welcome to 7:30 Victoria.
Very good to be with you, Josie.
First to the Morwell Mine fire and the deaths that we've reported on tonight. Should the inquiry into the Hazelwood coal mine fire be reopened?
I think that it should be, Josie. I don't think that you can properly account for the commitments the government made to look into this matter, to inquire fully and frankly, without looking at the new evidence that your program has put on the public record tonight.
This is Win News.
Tonight, a new multi-million-dollar fire station for Morwell. Protesters continue their stand against tree removal. And police roar through Gippsland to honour fallen mates. Good evening, I'm Bruce Roberts. Also tonight, traffic disruptions during repairs to a landslip. A $5 million fire station will be built in Morwell in the wake of the Hazelwood Mine Fire inquiry's recommendations. A Latrobe City CFA district will also be established as the hunt for land to house the new station gets underway.
Morwell has been the focus of millions of dollars worth of electioneering this week, but the Deputy Premier was at pains to point out the town's new fire station is fully funded.
It is not a campaign promise. It is not for the government of any new duration after the election. The money is there, it is funded now, and the intention is that we acquire a new site, do the planning, do the building of this new facility.
The Hazelwood Mine Fire inquiry report recommended the state government ensures all emergency response agencies have capable resources for rapid public communication during an emergency.
With the extra requirements obviously out of the mine inquiry that has been put on place as to emergency services, we'll have extra facilities for those training facilities, extra requirements for the staffing here and also the volunteers.
The Morwell CFA responds to about 750 call-outs a year and employs 17 career firefighters and 80 volunteers.
At the moment we're lacking space considerably, where we've got trucks parked out the backyard which are able to be responded, so they're not inside the station. So we lack a lot of space.
This facility has served us well for a number of years, having moved here from the old Church Street site. So this has served us well, but it's also now a recognition that, into the future we need a facility that is going to give us room to grow.
The government is in the process of establishing a Latrobe City CFA district and a task force to work with mine operators to plan for the coming fire season. However, a timeline for the new station hasn't been released.
The money's available now. The process can commence immediately, being able to acquire the land, do the planning, build it as soon as we possibly can.
Anita Butterworth, Win News.